Hey, y'all, this is Trent Knox with The Trent Knox Show. This is episode 81, Self-Esteem. In this episode, I am talking to live chat and I'm testing out the new Restream Live Studio browser application. And I go into my emotional state about the pandemic and also what is going on in the world in regard to the content that is being created and why people are kind of panicking and behaving in kind of strange ways, not helping each other and holding each other back. And it really goes in deep to my emotions. I hope you enjoy the episode.
I just roll the dice, pack up in the Audi, back to go, little Joe. I just hit for 40, ripping on some grain, swinging like I stole it. Shorty got the guys, juicy how she poking. I just roll the dice.
God, opening this podcast up with just spent 20 minutes sitting here wanting to test out this new live studio on Restream that is basically another version of StreamYard, up and coming version, kind of what all of these sorts of browser based streaming studios are trying to do. It's just another version of it. And I sat here for 20 minutes and the video did not even go live. So 20 minutes of what I just did does not exist anymore. And unfortunately, it didn't record any of that either. So I think in brass tacks, what I had said before, I had gone live here, which I can see now that I'm live on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, DLive, Mixer, and Periscope. What I said basically before is like, I feel alone. Essentially, I've told my friends, acquaintances, I've told everyone. I've explained it in several different ways how we could get this thing going, and they don't seem interested. They don't want to invest in my idea. Maybe that's it, and I hate that. I hate that. I hope it's not jealousy that's driving that emotion or what it is, because ultimately the excuses that they're making, the ones that I don't believe are barriers to their success, is massive. I think they've got it all wrong. They've got it all wrong, and they look at me like I've got it all wrong. Because we all kind of have these things that we deal with that we feel negative. We have got negative emotions and negative behaviors towards. And that's just reality. I think we got things to deal with. What's up, K9 Ultra on Mixer? Thank you for tuning in. So I want to do this podcast. The podcast is objectives and goals. And maybe this is the messaging that people are looking for, is a direct message of stating what I believe I want to do, and I'm gonna write it down as the stream of consciousness, as I put these thoughts on paper as well as on wax about everything that I've been saying on guest appearances on podcasts, guest appearances on live streams, guest appearances in studio, all of these things that I've been doing, that I'm just at this point frustrated in platforms as well as content creators as to like the amount of support documents that I've sent out saying, look, I'm an investor in these platforms by every single dollar that I've put into it, and the issues of reciprocation of being poorly treated as a consumer, poorly treated as an investor, poorly treated in so many different ways as a contributor to the overall scene, the overall medium. And I'm listening to this podcast that Knives Monroe did. I cannot remember for the life of me who the guest was. My my apologies on that. Let's see. I'm gonna try something out here. Thank you for tuning in, Alfie and Mystic on Twitch. I want to see what this does. Oh, it shows you play Minecraft. We need friends. I just threw that up there. I'm just checking things out. What do I do now? How do I stop this? How do I stop the showing? Maybe I'll just show this one. I put stream elements up on there because I can't seem to figure it. Oh, I found it now. Here it is. I think that I'm trying to figure out how I can manage and operate this business. Unfortunately, Alfie, I don't play Minecraft. I don't own the game, so that's not gonna be for me. But I appreciate the invitation. It's difficult to transition. I would like to be friends with you. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to here. I'm gonna put this message up here. Hopefully, I want you to go to discord.ebn.gg. I want you to go to discord.ebn.gg, and I want you to join the Esports Business Network Discord. That's what I want you to do. It's my call to action. And I want you to join there. And if you people are not allowed to have Discord, that's hilarious. Very strange. But I don't know what to tell you about that. If you're not allowed to have Discord, then that's what it is. And unfortunately, your mom is a probably a lovely woman, but I do not agree with her decision to restrict your access to information. So I know there's a lot to unpack right now, and the most important part here that we're talking about in this podcast is the fact that the tool set that I've been doing as I've collected the tools and I've put them into operation with my companies, with my individual projects, something like the Trent Knox show that we're doing right here, which is on a podcast on anchor.fm if you want to check that out. Stiggy Man says, I can't see my keyboard. Just a heads up if I mistype. No worries. No worries about that. And Alfie says, basically he says he hates his mother. And he says he's 23 and still not allowed to have Discord. That's rough, man. I mean, it is what it is, especially if she's got some sort of thing that has you feeling like she has some sort of dominance over you. Don't let her have that dominance over you. You know, you're an alpha. You're alpha, man. Be an alpha male. Alpha male in the house. Tell her who's the boss. Tell her that she doesn't need to go around exhibiting that type of behavior. She needs to grow up. Tell her that she needs to think a little bit more, have a little bit more conception of reality. Tell her, just explain it to her in a way that she realizes that it's not her place to make those decisions, and then that might go a good way. That might be the way to go. I expected that to come through, especially that message right there. Exactly, that's what I said. Oh yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Alfie, I don't know how to help you, especially in a situation where you feel that contempt toward her, but then you're not willing to tell her what's what. I don't think domestic violence is the way to go. Alfie says he's going to smack his mother with a PS4 controller, potentially, but I don't think that's the way to go. Anyway, the internet here is something that we gotta learn how to communicate with people during this time, and I think that a lot of us don't have the tools to operate in that way, and I think half of the battle is not having a robust understanding of the systems in play. So, I hear podcasts like Knives, and go back to this subject right quick. For those of you guys who are listening, obviously I like to interact still with the live stream. Is some people are educated and experienced in a way to use tools like these new stream studios, for broadcasters, browser-based stream studios. And I've been in this space for 5 years, and then been in the live streaming space for over 12 years, about 12 years. And it has been it's been an interesting time. Personally, I've never figured it out. But also maybe that's a lack of execution. This is a great opportunity, a great time to work on that and be more engaged and proactive. But anyway, so that podcast that Knives was talking with his guests, it really highlighted some things that I didn't know about, and I hadn't really dealt with those insecurities. I hadn't really thought about them in the perspective that podcast, the language and the way that they were communicating, put it in. I could tell that they had kind of defined childhoods. And I have a defined childhood, and I have a childhood from birth to 5 years old, and then a childhood from 5 years old to 18. And then there's my adult life from 18 to to now. And I never really had the. It's been a negative, kind of a negative perspective that has been festering in my mind as of recently, because the leadership and the authorities and the elders that we see on a daily basis have let me down. That may not be the case with you on the other end, or the listener, the viewer, subscriber. Thank you for subscribing. Hit the notification bell to get alerts when I go live again. But it's a reality that I'm facing, that my parents, the law enforcement, the president has, they all kind of are cogs in a system that is operating inefficiently. And when I look back at my childhood, I realize that I have contempt on some of those individuals, past and maybe current, because I felt neglected. I feel neglected today, right now, in the sense that I've always felt that resources in my life were finite. And I know that's not the case for other individuals that have lived a lower socioeconomic lifestyle than mine, because resources can be love, can be money, can be food, can be access to shelter, can be a number of different things. But when you look at the mathematics or analytics or statistics on those categories, and you can look at it and say, oh, I've been neglected in the love category. I've been neglected in the financial category. I've been neglected in the emotional category. And these things can give you an overall life report card that you think, well, then why is it that people with in circumstances that you would think are more that are inferior or worse than yours, are you feeling an inefficiency, feeling depressed, feeling worthless, feeling like no one cares about you, that the support system that's supposed to be there, like family, friends, acquaintances, the system, is not looking out for you. And I feel this personally, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that relate to this, that sure, people have given you, I think existence, in some ways, people can feel guilt, and people don't necessarily know how to equal out negative experiences, because they don't have enough to give, or whatever it may be. Periscope, are you a muhadid? I don't know what a muhadid is, or that's not muwadid. Muhawidi. I don't know what that means, but a Muslim. No, I am not. I am not a Muslim. But are you a sister or a brother? I don't know. No, I'm not. But I appreciate Islam. I appreciate Christianity. I appreciate Buddhism. I appreciate Taoism. I appreciate all forms of repetition. I appreciate religion. Monotheist. Yeah, I am a monotheist. I do believe that there is a source, and that source is what derives the world, and that is a singular being. Um, yeah, man, I just watched and I Ukab Beryar on Periscope. I just got done watching. What was it? Oh man, it's the second movie I watched was The Circle, which was like a movie, a horror movie, basically about individuals that got put into this kind of alien spaceship thing that decided to start killing them off. But the first movie was, I think it was called Floor, or maybe that's not correct. Um, but I don't remember. It was about like this world that people are on each level of like a prison, and depending upon what level of in the world in this prison you were on, you would get fed, and then it was like this conveyor or elevator of food, and if you were on a lower level, you wouldn't get fed. Anyway, those two horror movies that I recently watched on Netflix. Netflix has those. I'd go check those out. But anyway, so a supernatural scary movie. Any supernatural scary movies that I would suggest? Um, Supernatural. I mean, I'd go back and watch the Strangers, man. The Strangers. I think that movie, um, that has always been a good one for me. Obviously, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies; those are good ones. I thought about watching The Purge recently, um, but I don't know. I couldn't. I didn't. I didn't end up watching it. I think those movies are good. And then I heard. Who did I hear was talking about this? Somebody on somebody's other podcast was talking about watching Bright. Um, but I can't remember what they if they liked if I can't remember. Uh, uh, UQ on Periscope says he's watched all the purges. So yeah, I think that this is an interesting time where we're reflecting. I think there's a lot of reflection going on right now of our past and what we've experienced, our experiences, and who should or who could have. The question is, who could have stepped up? Who could have been responsible? Who could have taken on accountability? Who could um, have done a better job? Um, and it's never going to be the subordinate or the the child or the dependent, you know, and maybe the sponsor or the parent or the guardian may feel that don't they're not responsible for whatever reason, that they would, they get caught up in this mindset of, you know, the subordinate being the problem, that if the child, the subordinate, the whatever employee didn't exist, then they they wouldn't be responsible. It wouldn't be their fault that they underperformed or were inefficient. And so it's there. That's what's going on. And UQ says it's all Bush's fault for going to war in the Middle East, bro. Oh man. I can see that perspective. I can see the perspective of people blaming an individual. Unfortunately, when we're talking about corporatism and looking deeper into real reasons, it is a global issue of inefficiency. It is a problem with generational degradation. It is a problem that the world prior to today wasn't able to optimize their memory, storage, and defense measures. So I think, there's a sense of people lack of equality in the world. And while I see where the perspective of it being Bush's fault for going to war in the Middle East is the reality that if it wasn't Bush, it would be Putin. Or if it wasn't Putin, it would be an internal war. If it wasn't for everyone continually looking and searching for an opportunity to earn and drive manufacturing, finance up, we wouldn't be in the place that we are today. It doesn't matter who the enemy or the aggressor is. It doesn't matter whether you're the good guy or the bad guy. At least in the current understanding of the world. And if you can listen to other more podcasts that have more exposure, and you'll realize that that it is the people with higher intellectual resources that are to blame at this point, because they've not provided those resources to they put those resources behind a payment wall, and therefore the individuals who are not fortunate enough to climb the social hierarchy of the world are unable to access that. And of course, if we're going to call it Bush's fault, we can go back to the day when the Library of Alexandria was burnt down, and the fact that all of that time, and we look back and look at that as, we just can't go back into history constantly and look at what went wrong and not look at the future, other than the fact that we need to realize that if those same issues are being exhibited in the now, they need to be addressed. As in, if your employer is not stepping up and looking for assistance and help in managing you or the operation, then there's a huge deficiency in that leadership, and they need to step down. That's truth. Maybe potentially that could be a conversation about anybody in a leadership role, whether that's Trump or the CEO of whatever. Yeah, I love that. I love what Marius Tudor says right now. He says they burned the Library of Alexandria to get rid of ancient knowledge. Too true. Just look at, when we think about the Sphinx in Egypt, that type of precision, that type of sculpting could have only been done with advanced tools and advanced knowledge. I hear this conversation about in the ether about magic or aliens or whatever, but I think it's more specific that during that time, they might have been able to design a mechanism of a tool like a plasma cutter, and they were able to utilize that sort of technology to make those precision cuts. And this is the reality that we're dealing with right now. Is that there are people in power that are negligent and neglecting to think about the future of humanity, and maybe they're trying to attain, they're trying to keep the small amount of power that they still have, so that they can sacrifice a large majority of us in their attempt to find another habitat or somewhere that they can live, while many of us will suffer along the way. Whereas they could figure out a more efficient system for all of us to go. Um, UQ, I don't necessarily know about those conversations about the Taliban, and I'm not too familiar with what's going on in Afghanistan at this time, but it is something that's going on. I know that's happening. Marius Tudor says 144 acres of land for the biggest pyramid. It is only half square, and that's thousands of years old. Thank you for speaking up, Trent. God bless you and your family. And I say the same thing for you, Marius. It's something that I feel is my duty to talk about, sort of what kind of information I'm getting, and trying to figure out how to digest that information, because in many ways I think that there's a lot of things going on that can pull individuals off of what they know is true, like their intuition, their spirituality, and take them down a road in which they start to fear, or maybe get nervous about nervous about their surroundings, because they don't understand or have the experience of fear, and what fear is, and how to turn fear into a blessing, or into a tool in which you can improve yourself. And I think that in order to improve yourself, you gotta get past that. Yeah, well, fear, I think, Marius, is not only it's not only it's not only a liar. It is in the sense of it being existing in a way. I think that the actual nature of fear, or the application of fear, when someone is fear mongering and trying to make a person doubt or degrade themselves, thinking that they're not worthy, or they're not prepared to overcome the obstacles that are in front of them. That's when fear is used as a weapon against individuals, families, nations, and that's that's when I am concerned about fear. But fear is something that you do need, because we all need to innovate. We all need to be better people. And in order to have something to do in life, I think that you need a purpose. You need fear to overcome. If you have no fear, then what would you do? Um, what what is your motivation in life? There's nothing for you to over. There's there's no obstacles because there's nothing to do. Just seeing a lot of people of faith that are so fearful of the world pandemic. I think, and this, Marius, is a very good point. True, you have to have courage. You have to have that. And let me go back to this last point. I'm gonna highlight it on the screen here. Is that a lot of people of faith that are so fearful of this world pandemic, and let's break this down. I think the reason that is because the spiritual leaders out there, um, the spiritual leaders out there don't have the tools that will provide them the resources to go to the to get over the obstacle of that fear, because they don't have the courage themselves, because they have become stagnant or manipulated by a system that is specific to an older set of tools. They just can't get over. They can't innovate. They're unable to innovate. And I look, and I'm very saddened by this being the case with some of these Christian churches, and even Muslim churches, and Buddhists, and a lot of different ritual places. They're unable to adapt to these new forms of tools, and then they demonize those new mechanisms because they don't realize. Hopefully, we're back up. They did not like that. I guess they were I guess those words were too powerful. Turned off the stream. Good. Good to know, Marius. Thank you. I don't know if it split the the stream, but I hope that that's not the case. So I'm so on the same page as you, Marius, as far as this manipulated by fear conversation. And I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to get split. But no worries. We'll just have to work with what we got here. I appreciate the fact that you're praying for me, and I'm hoping that I'm really hoping that spirituality and community bring together people in this time, and they're able to overcome this fear we're talking about. I'm hoping that we're all kind of, and in no way do I want this to feel, I want people to take this out of context, because I feel I'm in the same place. We're all kind of ignorant, and maybe some of you guys, you may have some information, and you may feel connected to to um, a source that you believe is capable of getting you through the time. The, it's it's just clear to me that it doesn't matter if you're a part of a church or if you're a part of a secret society or you're a part of your local um, chamber, your local bar scene, you just the church of a bar stool. Um, it doesn't matter what community you're a part of. We're all trying to figure this thing out. You know, whether it's going to take away your friends, take away your family, whatever it may be. Um, we're all in the same. We're all in the same boat. I think in places where there's a little bit more uncertainty, um, folks are a little bit more concerned and fearful for their future. But I think it really takes. Obviously, this is a perspective time. This is a matter of getting your thoughts together and deciding whether what you desire for your future. Um, it's a matter of looking and trying to figure out like what type of future do you want to live in. I think a lot of people are just happy with the way that it is, and they don't want change. It's so hilarious, given the fact that our previous president ran on a campaign of change, but in reality, not much changed. Um, it was a bunch of the same old, and we do have a really, really spastic, maybe even erratic, uh, un on just a man, a wild man as a president now in Trump, as they say, and we're experiencing a lot of different changes. A lot of different things are happening, and it's a it's a lot of fun to say the least. But it's also a matter of figuring out what folks are looking to do. Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Uh, in regard, it changed the way um, people. You should trust other people. This particularly is one of those experiences, because I've always kind of had skepticism. I'm a huge skeptic. I mean, after the experiences that I've been in, I can never I never just accept people for their word off the bat. I mean, they're really charismatic people, obviously. And I noticed just a minute ago that I was kind of adopting some of the mannerisms of, having watched Vice President Mike Pence, talk. And I know that he kind of uses body language to to get his message across, and sometimes get people to agree with him when in times in which maybe he he shouldn't be agreed with. And give me a moment. I have some business to attend to. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. I had to take care of some business there, try to get some hangers for some clothes. Accept for people knee high and expect from God over the head. You know what? That's hilarious in some ways. I don't think you meant to make that. I don't think you meant to make that a joke, but it's just terrible to think that people people right now are more likely to kneecap you than work toward being a support system in that way. But I don't know. We'll see. Maximum Cool says, "What is your goal?" Okay, so thank you for getting here and helping me get to this point here, Maximum. My goal is to create a safe place for people to communicate their experience and their opinions, and accept that people are going to help them work through those ideas and support them. Support systems, man. I think that the what I consider safe is a system in which it's open source, that people are able to state their opinions and talk about some of the things that may be controversial. Obviously, we know some of the extreme circumstances that are kind of a little bit too far out there. Obviously, we got to look at the science, and we got to think about some of the psychological consequences, and there has to be some pushback for people to provide some sort of works cited or bibliography, just validation in some sort of professional manner. That being said, there is time for entertainment. There is time for fiction. There's time for people to entertain. And I think that's important as well. But obviously, we need to be very considerate in that sense. In that we need to keep our eyes open and our minds, our eyes and our ears, our minds, our mouths, the core, the core experience that we have, our receptors, our core receptors need to be open for different mindsets, and kind of hearing different perspectives, not being too constricting on our perspectives, and remembering that closed mouths don't get fed. I think that's important, very important. Probably the most important is that during this time, it is complex to benefit right now. It's very difficult to stay on track, whether that's diet, nutrition, education, so many different ways. Maximum Cool says, "What do you want the world to be like? Because it seems you may have an idea." Oh man, what do I want the world to be like? Well, after listening to um, some really intelligent people, um, I think it's important that we we think about we definitely need to think about the type of person that we put in power, people I should say, we put into power. And I don't know necessarily if that person should have to be a um, like someone who speaks multiple languages, or someone who could communicate to the vast majority of humanity, or what they need to do, but they need to be cognizant of the large the diversity of the world. And I think that's important. So a an executive power, a leadership class of people that understand that communication is incredibly important. And I think number two is that the world kind of needs some people that are innovative, and maybe they're considered crazy, in 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 the sense of that a lot of people are kind of just living their lives out, kind of like on autopilot. They're so used to. I think this is a there are incredibly intelligent people, experts out there that are talking about this being the big. We're waking up, or people are becoming woke from the big nap, and in the big nap, I interpret that as people have been on autopilot. Um, they're so used to the routine of their generation after generation of people in their families or in their community, that multi-generational same country, multi-generational same job, multi-generational same religion, and that these things have not suited them to be prepared for sort of circumstances like these, where they need to have the tools that they were provided didn't were not designed to combat a um, a global pandemic like this, or even a small, a smaller issue like a community based disaster. you know and we can see that from the top down, and this whole concept of Reaganomics, trickle down economics, that there was massive issues in infrastructure, massive, because the people at the top forgot that the systems need to be innovated. They forgot how to balance the system. They forgot how to delegation. I think that that's incredibly important. I think that someone needs to study the analytics and make sure that there's um, a median between which we can between which something becomes too deficient in its operation, and something that's over, um, so maybe that we're spending too much resources in a category, in innovation, and maybe that could be so long as we're in a happy median, then we might be, we might perform better. But it is kind of not where I'm currently at in my human experience. So I can only kind of think about it and ponder about how it would be to be um, in that position in operation, an operational place in which you're the leader of a nation, or you're the leader of a large format community, and what should be done to balance out the systems. But like I said, I think delegation and people who understand that to that we can't have economic crashes. Um, if our goal is, if some of our goals are to um, sustain life on this planet or on other planets, if we choose to leave this planet. And so I'll go to the next question. Maximum is Cool says, do you think a lot of this is because of the normalization of degeneracy? Oh, wow. That's a good question. Really good question. And the reason why I say that is because I was like, again, I want to reference Nas Monroe's podcast again. And him talking about the fact that, what got him into filmmaking, or I mean, not particularly him, but his guest and him as well in ways, was the making these backyard wrestling videos and kind of like the Jackass style home videos. And I think that, if we're talking about society, and we're relating it to like the idiocracy, that style movie where we have a kind of we've got a caricature of a president in Donald Trump. However, that's how the media is portraying him, because they can kind of adjust perspective, and he can adjust perspective as well to kind of get his message off clearer, if he's able to. Maybe he's not able to. Maybe his team or his operational standpoint is not able to to process that information. They've got bigger things to worry about. But yeah, I definitely, I do believe that the normalization of degeneracy is a factor. It's a factor. It is a factor in the reason why, we're here today is because people are willing to sacrifice the well-being of themselves as well as the people that surround them, due to many reasons. And it could be, it could be just the fact that type of behavior is rewarded. That type of behavior is rewarded nowadays. You see TikTok, you see Snapchat, you see OnlyFans, you see Pornhub, you see, examples. There's so many examples, of how YouTube, to even a degree, is like they've pretty much gone all the way to social justice warriors being the all the time. That's all that trends. Every single thing that you see is transvestite this, prankster this, gluttony this. The top trending on YouTube is essentially a top ranking videos for the 7 deadliest sins. And I don't know. I don't know what can be done to kind of balance out the media. But the type of media that people, I don't think people want that much. I think that there's a lot of people who just want to know what is real. They want to see, they want to know how to make it in this world. And they try that degenerate route and it doesn't serve them. And that's the unfortunate part, is that they try to go down the degenerate route, whether that's, you know, sex, being a sex worker, or being a drug dealer, or being something like that mukbang stuff. It doesn't, I don't know what to be specific about, but those things that, there's just not that much space for everyone to to benefit in our current society, that off of that's those sorts of behaviors. Maximus replied, says, it is rewarded, but it seems scarce, or it seems to scare these people and make them non-trustworthy and addicted to they get themselves into, basically, he says. Yeah, I think that, it's so interesting when you look back at, um, some of your were younger, what people morals, what were their values when they were younger? How did they navigate the world? And then you look at them when they become adults, and it seems to contradict the the values that they had. And you know what? I'm gonna put this on wax, is that, I say that, and I can anticipate the pushback on that, being like, oh, well, you used to behave like this. Oh, well, you used to do things like this. You've changed. You changed. Now you do. Now you're on here doing podcasts. Now you're speaking up. You're doing. You're saying things. Honestly, the only thing I say to that is that if you weren't my friend then, and you didn't know that I was talking that talk, and I was spitting that game, and you don't know about, uh you don't know the hood that I grew up in. You don't know the stuff that I went through, that, from the preppy kids and in my grade school, to that they weren't my friends, or being on the sports team, and being third string or whatever, or not getting to play, and those, first stringers, or whatever, uh only, I can't really dive into it that much. I mean, I don't know, like, to be honest, I don't know what the situation was. I mean, I know I was a quiet person when it comes to school. I focus on school. When it comes to education, there's just so many reasons, that perspective, looking back, um, you can't know everything. There's no way, because you may not even realize it or not. You don't necessarily have control over the whole narrative of what's going on when you're younger, and unless you have an incredible sense of self, um, you're gonna be influenced. Um, and I was one of those people. I was definitely one of those people that not only my peers influenced me, but adults. And that's the thing. Like, it's very difficult for people to find their own way. Maximus comes back with a reply. He says, it seems to me once people start having sexual intercourse, there's a weird connection that cannot be broken between the people who indulge, and it seems to make the people crazy. Same with drugs like meth. All right, so when we're talking about sexual addiction, or alcohol addiction or drug addiction. Crazy. This is interesting. I don't necessarily think it is the I don't necessarily think that it's whether you have or you have not. Um, that's not where the if we're still going down the conversation of why people find people find degeneracy attractive. I definitely don't necessarily think whether you've had the experience or you have not had the experience, because you hear about all of those people out there who pretend to overindulge in sex, pretend to overindulge in alcohol, drugs, pretend to overindulge in food. And there is a whole nother issue that aligns with this in the fact that honesty, honesty is a problem. And I've dealt with that in my life, where I've over exaggerated something, or lied, or been a liar. Hey, Flying Talbot, thank you for tuning in. I recognize you, your name, and not much, man. We're just going through some subjects, recording a little bit of a podcast, sort of. I was just talking about with Maxim. Maximum's cool, about why people overvalue or hold on a pedestal degeneracy. No, I've seen you in the chat before. I've seen you tune into the show before. I think maybe there's another Flying Talbot, but I was pretty sure it was you. Oh, welcome. I welcome to the show. Anyway, so we're trying to kind of get through this concept of what things, how do people get addictions, and then what exacerbates those addictions. I think that's kind of what we're trying to get through, and why people get scared. Why people are scared of getting over that. So, degeneracy in the manner of why does someone like a Lil Peep die over drug overdose? Why do we hold these kind of people in why do we idolize kind of these people that overindulge, that find success in life, and then they influence people to go down a path that may lead to, they don't have the same sort of success, and then they succumb to those the things that make one person successful don't necessarily make the other person successful. So Flying Taba says depression and doing things we shouldn't is relatable. It feels good in general. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is true. That's true. I think we're all kind of suffering. But the trouble is when people are when an individual uses that emotion or that behavior illegitimately, or they use it as they're not really dealing with the issue to truth. They live they live a life of basically, I think that they call this in wrestling kayfabing, is pretending pretending like that's their real lifestyle, but in reality, they're much more balanced, much more, much less influenced by that type of behavior. Maximus Cool says, I think it's a lack of supervision in being raised by TV, internet, etc. This is an argument I hear all the time. I think, and it is true to some regard. Obviously, if left to our own devices, I think people will try to mirror or mimic the behaviors of a reality that is not based in practicality. Yeah, flying type. I never thought that you thought it was a good thing. I'm just trying to break it down and provide some context, and kind of personify it with celebrities, and also sort of trying to figure out where the foundation is, so that we can kind of start building up some structuring it, and in a way that we can help people that are suffering from this issue. This is a podcast, and we're just going about these things, and people are going to listen to this podcast, and they're going to hopefully the goal of it is to reflect on some of the things that they've felt that they need to overcome. And yes, thank you. I haven't done a plug for the podcast in a while, but it is anchor.fm/Trent Knox. That's where this podcast will go. This is a solo episode, and tomorrow around 2 p.m. we're going to be back live again for a podcast with with Alex Strenger. He ran for mayor in the city of Austin, Texas, and we're trying to, and we'll have him on tomorrow to talk about some of the stuff that's going on in the world. And as I speaking of Knives Monroe, earlier in this podcast, I was talking about his podcast that he had recently. I forget the name of the guest, but just talking about how I digested that podcast. I was listening to the podcast now, so I can be specific about it. As I was listening to the podcast while I was doing yard work, mowing the lawn, weed eating, and it fucked me up, man. It really did. It really fucked me up, and I know there were just so many things in the podcast that gave me like really negative thoughts in my head. And I've been going through this. You and I have had personal conversations about it. And it made me think about how people that I consider family, friends, that they may not be serving me, and I didn't realize some of the language that they've been using throughout my life, have basically pointed towards that they don't really care about me. They don't really love me. And that they would be happier if their lives would be better if I didn't exist. and that was something tough to go to deal with. Um, and you know, it just made the podcast that you had. You know, we really talked about, you know, the guest's family and how he grew up, and a lot of people that I've been talking with as of recently, uh, I think I'm being specific when I'm talking about my family, my parents specifically. What, you know, when I'm talking about this, you know, I'm trying to reference your podcast and the questions that you asked the guests, um, and I'm being very specific in that my my lifestyle. Maybe I should be even more specific. And then I don't tell this story enough. You know, it's like I'm beating a dead horse, constantly. You know, and uh, about the fact that, you know, I didn't grow up with a traditional family system. You know, my parents remarried. Um, uh, or my mother remarried, and I didn't. You know, and I hear I hear this. You know, dude, this is just difficult to get through because I'm really dealing with this and still trying to process it. And it was, you know, I don't like to get emotional. I don't like to. I like to be practical. You know, it sucks. It's like you know, it's not the reality I want to have lived. No way. No way I would wish this reality for anyone. I wouldn't wish anybody to not have a family support system or something. And it's not only, I'm not talking about resources. I think people get confused all the time about this. Like, oh, if your money, if money's involved, it doesn't matter. Well, money is not the only thing, the only resource out there. You know, you could live a very poor lifestyle, but as long as you have a family that loves you and really supports you, and that they don't use their agenda to 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 direct you in life, especially if they've got no validation. You know, especially if they're not you know, they're not in any way more important than you are, or if they haven't figured it out for themselves. Um, but I guess that takes perspective, and I don't know if everyone has that. I don't think a lot of people have the introspective processing tool like I do. I feel like a lot of people don't they hear it all the time. This is what they hear. They hear, um, do you even hear what you're saying? People say that to people all the time. I feel like I hear it all the time. Like, do you ever take your own medicine? I hear that all the time. I hear that feedback, and it's so it's it's almost those people who point the fingers. The people who point the fingers are often the people who don't take their own medicine. The people who who use these sound bites, the people who do that, um, are often the ones that have no ability to look back on the damage that they're causing other people. That they have no bone in their body to feel remorseful. Um, they don't understand how to. They have no empathy, and that's a tool. That's an attack tool these days, and I hate that. I hate that. You know, people call people on the spectrum. They just I'm so fed up with that. It's you know, saying that someone is on the autistic spectrum and saying that they lack empathy or blah blah blah, and it's all bullshit. It's just people who are superficial, so superficial, looking to be disrespectful to other people. It's an attack. Anyway, I just went off on a tangent there. Let me get back to what you guys are talking about. Um, I mean, me and Knives go back and forth all the time, and he can get me in this down these tangents, and I know that I don't know. Maybe it's just not, he's got so many stuff. I don't know why he does this, but it does kind of bother me sometimes. But it's whatever. Yeah, I have yet to find a family that has a lot of self control to offer what you're talking about. I guess it gives me and maybe others an incentive to go ahead with my own path. And Maximus Cool says again, he says, it seems there's a lot of hypocrisy and they do the opposite of what they preach. I'm fine with someone who has flaws, but all I find is people who lie constantly just to be validated by society. Oh, that's so true. That's so true. And Knives, here's the thing. It's not what you're saying. It's a behavior, and you exhibit this behavior. I find it you do. You're passively asking. Like you have no intention of actually really getting through it, but I don't, it's not you in any way. I think it's just a mindset, I don't like the mindset, and I don't think it serves my lifestyle. It may serve your lifestyle. And going back to maybe the beginning of this podcast was like, everybody has different goals. And those actions, you got to figure out what actions and what matters to you to reach those goals. And, sometimes somebody's opinion or perspective on what should be done doesn't lead to the accomplishment or the reward that the other person is looking for, because they in no way do I don't know the truth. I don't know how true this is. I'm gonna say it, and then we have to unpack it. I don't envy you, Knives, but I can see where that would come from. I don't envy other videographers in the space, and I think that was in the podcast that you guys were talking. It was this style of content creator, and this there's this style of content creator out there that man, I don't know how to put this in words, what I'm feeling, and the words are kind of going fast, and I'm trying to grab them out of my head, because it kind of makes me angry. And when I get angry, it's like I want to speak a mile a minute. I want to go really fast and splurge it out, but it doesn't. My communication, the way that I speak, doesn't get it out. and I'm trying to just I'm trying to develop the words real quick. Let's highlight specific things. So when we go back and we talk about what Maximum's Cool is talking about, or Maximum is Cool is talking about, and also Flying Talbot, we'll go back to the degeneracy content creation based off of this idolization of degeneracy, or of people exhibiting negative behaviors. And this is in no way directly related to knives, but we'll get to that. The origin story of how they go about accomplishing their goal, Hogan, or is any way like a couple other folks. Pasca Samako, I didn't know you had been following me for so long, but thank you for the follow. I don't think in any way that it's a long follow. Let's go back into this. I'm getting distracted with what's going on, but I appreciate for everyone who's tuning in. I think that there's a belief system of a way that something that there's a belief system of people who want to do it a certain type of way, that believe art is justified in being done through sacrifice or through deficiency. And then there's the alternative where there's so many different ways to say that basically no matter the way you do it, no matter the way you live, the way that you accomplish things. Yeah, man. I think that there, again, and so this is going to be the third portion of the podcast, and maybe the last of it. I don't know if you guys are still here or not. I can't see, but Maximus Cool said the last thing he said was not to be negative, but it seems like you could compare it to selling your soul. So that's something that in the entertainment world, people talk about all the time. People don't talk about that all that much in like the general workforce. People don't consider. People don't necessarily think about selling their soul being the kind of like, entertainment at all levels for sure. I don't think people consider selling your soul whenever you're working at McDonald's, and I think selling your soul at the end of the day is, are you willing to be in ways that you don't believe are appropriate just for money? Are you going to do things that you don't think are right for money? And I don't think that's black and white. I definitely don't think that's black and white. I think there's color to that. I think there's, I think people need to figure that out for themselves over time. Maybe there's some leverage to making that sort of sacrifice. But man, if it's been 30 years, 50 years, and the same, you're still in the same fucking shit. You're still in the trenches. You're still, there's no change. There's no evolution. That you're still fucking people over again and again and again. You know, um, I think people should probably change their mindset and what they're doing. But I think that in relationships, people tend to attach themselves to certain behaviors, you know, and they that behavior that they think or emotion or actions, they romanticize the experiencing that from another person, you know. I think that's kind of where, you know what, we're kind of getting to it, Maxim. I think that this is important, is that like you know, people who love the degeneracy. Pasca, I my streams F 3 times. Um, so what we were doing is we're recording a podcast for anchor.fm/Trent Knox. And hopefully that recording will still be here at the end of this end of this stream, so we can put it up. And we've been talking about like people in power, how we're kind of, you know, I don't know if you've seen the movie Idiocracy, but we're living in a society where Maximum Cool brought it up, said that degeneracy is idolized basically and rewarded. And you see it all over the social media. You see it basically on regular traditional media now. You see it on TV. You see everywhere you look that has a screen. Unless you're in like a small community like this, you don't get you don't get the kind of even keeled thought, people who think things through, that, you know, they don't there's just so many different things. Like I guess people who overindulge, you know, people who I guess the main thing is hatred. I think that hatred is tough. But then again, I understand people can get hurt. I feel like, you know, retaliation. Clearly, if you feel like you've been wronged, if you feel like, and I think people are quick to not have a conversation, you know, or it may be because the other end of the party that you're calling out for the conversation, they may not be receptive to being told that they hurt your feelings, or that they weren't honest with you, and they weren't being, you know, that they're not serving you. So Maximum Cool goes back and says, I think they may be so distracted and it never comes to mind, and they just go with it even if their instinct says otherwise. I mean, so like from the individual standpoint, I mean,